Today we are doing a video that I know is going to annoy people on both sides of this title, which usually means his way of making, as a debate and communication is the best route for any disagreements. Because if you say Andrew Tate is right about everything, that is quite lazy way of thinking. Equally so, if you say Andrew Tate is wrong about everything, that is also extremely lazy. And I am not necessarily interested in lazy thinking on this channel. I am interested in what is true, what is useful, and what is distractive. And I always say that two things can be true at the same time. So this video is absolutely not a fan tribute and is absolutely not a cancellation performance. It is a breakdown. The title is The 6 Things Andrew Tate Got Wrong, but the 3 he got right. And yes, I know some people already hate the fact I said he got anything right. Others probably hate that I am saying he got things wrong. That's very good. I would like you to stay. That is exactly why we really do need to have these kind of conversations. And I do not see a lot of women out there starting those conversations. Because what made Andrew Tate so influential was not just pure controversy, okay? It was that he mixed truths with exaggerations, insight with ego, discipline with performance, and reality with a degree of manipulation. That is why so many young men listened. He did not become globally viral because he said random nonsense. He became viral because he identified real pain points, which are male drifts, fatherlessness, lack of purpose, weak boundaries, addiction to comfort, and the emptiness of modern life. He spoke to those things in language which many men felt was raw, direct, and apologetic. But then he often took valid observations and pushed them into extremes that can damage men, women, relationships, and society. We also have to remember that there is such a thing as an exception from the rule, and he is an exception from the rule. So are the likes of Candace Owens with what she is preaching. And this matters because a lot of people today do not know how to separate signal from noise. They think if someone is wrong about one thing, perhaps everything they say must be garbage. Or if someone is right about one thing, then every point they have is genius. That is cold thinking. Today we are not doing cold thinking, we are doing adult thinking. So here is the structure I'm going to try and stick by. Firstly, I'll explain why Tate resonated in the first place. Then I will break down the 6 things I believe he got wrong, and I will be extremely specific. After that, I will cover the 3 things he got right, and I will explain why those points landed so hard. And at the end, I will talk about the real question. What should young men actually take from all of this if they want to build a strong life without becoming bitter, performative, or self-destructive? If you got to this point and you already disagree with me, that's quite perfect actually. Just try and stay until the end before you decide what this video actually is. Because the whole point is that reality is more complicated than internet tribes. Life is not black and white. It is very, very grey. All sorts of shades of grey. Let me start with something important. The internet has created a strange habit where people are sorted into teams before they even finish a sentence. Me saying perhaps feminism is a lie as the main part of my online work puts me somewhere. I fully appreciate that. But if you criticize Tate, people call you weak, brainwashed, feminist, or irrelevant. If you say he made some good points, people call you dangerous, misogynistic, or morally compromised. That is really not analytical thinking. That is how social media has conditioned us. Andrew Tate became a symbol, and once someone becomes a symbol, people stop hearing words and start reacting to what that symbol really represents to them with their own reality. We all have our own reality. People do tend to forget that. For some men, he represented confidence, discipline, self-respect, ambition, anti-victimhood, and masculine energy, which are all extremely positive values. You can't disagree with that. For others, he represented arrogance, misogyny, exploitation, humiliation, and the glamorous world of being dominant. For many people, he represented both. And that is exactly why I believe that this discussion is worth having, and having this breakdown is quite important in today's culture. You may think, why am I making this video? Well, the reason I wanted to make this video is because I see a lot of young men and young women just talking past one another online. Young men say no one cares about them, no one teaches them how to be strong, and everyone just pathologizes masculinity. And I would certainly agree with that, especially when it comes to young women. They definitely do that. However, at the same time, young women say men like Tate normalize contempt, manipulation, and emotional immaturity, which is kind of dressed up as confidence by Tate. Both of these groups are responding to something real and their pain points. But if we stay at the level of outrage, no one really learns anything and no one takes anything positive out of the conversation. This video really is about what do we keep and what do we reject. What is useful and what is poison? What sounds strong but is actually insecurity in a tailored suit? That would be in regards to Tristan Tate. And before we get into it, a quick note. You do not have to like Andrew Tate to understand why he became influential. You just have to be an intelligent and emotionally wise person. And understanding influence is not the same as endorsing it. If you cannot separate those two things, you will firstly have a very hard time in life with how big social media is, but secondly, you will keep losing cultural arguments because you will be reacting emotionally while other people are diagnosing causes, as we are doing here. And reacting emotionally proves Tate's point. So let's move on to why he actually resonated so hard. Andrew Tate, out of all the things he claims he is, I can tell you one thing for free. He's an absolute fantastic marketeer, and I believe his knowledge on human psychology is vast. Andrew Tate resonated because he entered a vacuum of father figures, a vacuum of honest messaging to men, and a vacuum of meaning. A lot of boys are growing up in environments where they are told what not to be more often than what to become. Do not be toxic, do not be aggressive, do not be controlling. Fine, those are fair points, but what should they be? You're just telling them what not to be. Where is the language of discipline, masculinity, responsibility, courage, competence, leadership, restraint, sacrifice, and honorable strength? Many institutions stopped teaching that very clearly. Tate stepped into that gap. He also understood attention better than most people who are criticizing him. The shock value. I've been through his long-form content, many hours of it. He says himself, it's all for a shock value. Things he says in the long content are far more reasonable. He makes statements in absolutes in short clips. He creates a villain and a hero. He weaponizes certainty. Social media loves certainty. Nuance does not go viral as easily as dominance does. If you speak like a motivational poster crossed with a thread that kind of looks like a bold Naruto from Dragon Ball, and then you get clipped, posted, debated, and repeated, brilliant. That is marketing 101, and that is absolutely what he did brilliantly. He is also marketing masculinity as aspiration. Cars, watches, travel, power, women, freedom, status, whether real, exaggerated, or strategically curated, it works. A lot of men do not just want advice. They want an image of who they could become. Tate sold an image first, then attached philosophy to it. That is one reason he outperformed more reasonable commentators. A sensible man saying sleep well, go to the gym, save money, and build character is pretty useful in today's social media society, but he does not necessarily trend the way Andrew Tate blew up online. A controversial man saying become fit, become rich, dominate life, never beg for respect, that trends. Understandably so. Being in marketing myself, I totally get it why. But the deepest reason he resonated is this. He made many men feel seen in a culture that often only notices men when they fail. He spoke directly to shame about weakness, porn addiction, procrastination, loneliness, lack of discipline, lack of money, and a lack of status. And he did not soothe them. He challenged them. There is a market for challenge, especially when society is drowning in therapy language without the real responsibility language. Here is the problem that I have with all of that. When someone identifies real pain, they gain trust. When they gain trust, people start absorbing their bad takes along with their good ones, and they take both of them as good. As we said before, if you hear someone say a good thing once, you probably assume the rest of the things they say are good too. That is why we need the next part, which is getting into the things that Tate got wrong. I don't think he's done it on purpose, but I do believe this was always supposed to be a catalyst to his virality, and he knew it was going to be not so good for the young boys that are listening, but it was just a part of the deal. You always have the good that comes with the bad. One of the biggest mistakes in hyper-performative masculinity is treating emotion like a weakness. Andrew Tate often promotes a version of masculinity that prizes control, but in practice, it can slide into emotional suppression. And that is a problem, because emotional suppression is not strength. It's just delayed chaos. It's like a ticking bomb. To be extremely clear, emotional discipline is good. Not exploding at every inconvenience is being mature. Not collapsing every time life gets hard is mature. But pretending that you do not feel grief, fear, betrayal, confusion, or loneliness is not maturity. That is denial at its best. And denial usually leaks out as anger, contempt, addiction, impulsive behavior, or cruelty. A lot of men hear content like Tate's and translate it into something like never admit pain, never show that you are vulnerable, never process any emotion, always project dominance. That does not build a strong man. It builds a man who forces a breakdown. It builds a man who forms strength until his nervous system forces a breakdown, or until he starts taking his unprocessed pain out on other people around him. The strongest men I know are not the loudest. They are not the most performatively cold. They can regulate themselves very well. They can sit with discomfort, they can be calm under pressure, and they can tell the truth about what they are carrying without turning it into a pity party. That is what I aim to be describing as actual strength. So if you're a young man that is watching this, do not confuse stoicism with numbness, okay? Stoicism is discipline in service of virtue. Numbness is often trauma wearing armor. That's a major difference. If you want a practical takeaway from this section, here it is. Build emotional range, not emotional chaos. Learn to name what you feel, regulate it, and choose action based on principle, not impulse. That is masculine, that is powerful, and that is much harder than pretending nothing affects you. Okay, another thing Tate gets extremely wrong is the way he often frames women in transactional or objectifying terms. Even when he says things that sound protective or pro-provider, the framework can still reduce women to what they represent for male status rather than who they are as full human beings. And again, when it comes to relationships and any rules, Tate is an exception from the rule. If you cannot understand why men like him date multiple women, you are going to have a hard time in life. That's what I'm going to tell you. I understand why he is dating multiple women at the same time, and I understand his thinking behind his actions. A lot of men who follow this content start speaking about women like they are some sort of products in the marketplace. High value, low value, useful, replaceable, trainable, cooperative, difficult. Now, yes, men and women both evaluate each other in dating. Attraction is a real thing, standards are very real, and preferences are also very real. But when you start talking about people as if they are assets under management, something has gone wrong within your character. And you have to also understand that if you want to be talking like Tate and you think you deserve the kind of relationships that Tate has, which involve, no doubt, a huge amount of money, you also have to have those huge amounts of money. This is one of the places where Tate's style can be deeply corrosive. It teaches men to read every interaction through power first, not truth, not compatibility, not character, power. Who controls, who submits, who wins, who loses. That may feel sophisticated if you are insecure, but it often destroys the possibility of real intimacy. And then you can't be surprised that a woman just is not in a mood. She's emotionally drained by you. A strong man should absolutely have standards. He should not tolerate disrespect, manipulation, or chaos. But standards are not the same as dehumanizing another woman. You can reject someone without degrading them. That goes for both men and women, by the way. You can prefer traditional dynamics without treating women like props. You can want femininity without demanding obedience as proof of your masculinity. And honestly, this point matters for women too. If a man's language about women sounds consistently contemptuous, even when he is complimenting women, pay attention to that. Contempt always surfaces eventually in behavior, and I can absolutely confirm that through my own personal dating experience. Healthy masculinity is not anti-women. It is pro-order, pro-responsibility, pro-dignity, and pro-boundaries. Those are not the same. Now, Tate often speaks as if money is the central proof of a man. Now I understand why this resonates. Economic failure crushes male confidence. Men are judged, often harshly, by competence and provision. That is extremely real. Financial discipline matters a lot when it comes to men. Ambition matters, building something matters. But the mistake is when money stops being one dimension of life and becomes the moral scoreboard for the whole human value. If a man internalizes the idea that his worth begins and ends with status markers, he becomes very weak to performance addiction. He does not build a life. He builds a display. And displays are extremely expensive emotionally and financially. He may chase women he does not even like. He may chase friends he cannot trust and lifestyle he cannot sustain, all because he's trying to feel visible. Certainly, recently we've seen on the news that there are extremely rich men with no integrity, no peace, no loyalty, no self-control, and no meaningful relationships. There are men of modest means with discipline, reliability, depth, fatherly presence, and real respect in their community. Ideally, you build both character and competence, but that's in a beautiful pink sort of glasses kind of world that doesn't exist. But if wealth becomes your only proof of masculinity, you are building on sand. That is one of the most dangerous messages to young men, because it can make them think they're not allowed to be in the process. A man at 21, 24, 27, even 30 might not be fully established yet. And in today's economy, more than likely he isn't till his 40s. That does not mean he is nothing. He may be in the phase of building his skills, his habits, his discipline and direction. That phase matters. If he's honest, committed, and improving, he's not a failure just because he does not have a supercar. And this is where you women absolutely suck. You have this expectation of this guy sweeping you off your feet in a Ferrari. What do you represent with yourself? Build him up, help him out, understand him, guide him, nurture him, be the other half. Maybe he'll become that man in the future. Because when the identity is tied to income, every financial setback feels like personal embarrassment, and that is no way to live. Another thing Andrew Tate gets wrong is the performance of invincibility. The idea that power must always be displayed, that softness is weak, that respect is mainly extracted, and the domination is a core relational mode. This kind of posture may look strong online, but in real life often creates brittle men. Why brittle, you may ask? Because the man who must always win every interaction becomes highly reactive to disrespect. The man who cannot be laughed at becomes insecure. The man who treats compromise as weakness becomes impossible to build with. The man who confuses fear with respect may get compliance for a while, but not loyalty. Real power is far more quieter than the internet power we all see. It does not need to be flexed every 10 minutes online. It does not need to humiliate people to feel bigger. It does not need to turn every disagreement into a hierarchy test, who is higher, who is lower. And in relationships especially, the domination mindset is often a sign that someone is not emotionally safe. A lot of young men copy the surface of Tate's persona without the context of business, age, experience, or strategy, and they end up just becoming rude, emotionally stunned, and socially unpleasant. They think confidence means interrupting, they think leadership means controlling, they think standards mean contempt, and they wonder why they repel quality people and women, future partners. The strongest people I have seen do not need to constantly signal that they are the strongest. They can be firm without being theatrical about it. They can disagree without escalating the conflict. They can lead without posturing. They can defend boundaries without making life a permanent war. Talking about war and Tate's war with Matrix, I do believe there is a degree of truth in that, but believe me, if you're in your early 20s and you make 5,000 euros a month, Matrix is not trying to fight you. If you have to perform invincibility all the time, ask yourself, what are you afraid will happen if people see you as human? That question will teach you more than another motivational clip. Tate's content often packages male-female relationships in broad rules, often with a confidence that sounds attractive because it reduces uncertainty, and he's an extremely good speaker. But human relationships are not clean equations. Again, they are not black and white. They are extremely gray, different shades of gray. They are patterns, yes, but not rigid formulas. Many red pill style frameworks become useful at first because they help people notice recurring dynamics. Attraction is not purely verbal. Respect matters. Desperation repels. Standards matter. Self-respect matters. And masculine passivity can be unattractive. Fine. But then some creators online jump from patterns exist to all women are like this, or all relationships work this way. That is where insight turns into the ideology / a cult. When men absorb rigid formulas, they stop seeing the persona in front of them. They start running scripts. They test, manipulate, strategize, and interpret everything as a game. They become less present. Ironically, this often makes them worse at relationships, not better. Every woman is not the same. I can tell you that from an experience. I'm a woman. I know about it, a thing or two. Every man is not the same. Again, I can wholeheartedly confirm this. Culture, age, family, history, faith, maturity, trauma, personality, and values all matter. A confident, grounded woman is not the same as an attention addicted one. A serious, disciplined man is certainly not the same as a charming manipulator. If your framework cannot account for differences, your framework is certainly too shallow. Oversimplified dating ideology also creates a degree of paranoia. Men start expecting betrayal before trust is even established. Women start expecting exploitation before a man has even shown his character. Then everyone says dating is broken, while bringing a shield and a weapon to every single first date. Better model, in my opinion, would be principles over formulas, okay? Principles over formulas. Use principles like honesty, boundaries, self-respect, patience, and consistency. Those work across all contexts. Rigid internet scripts usually do not. Let's talk about making rebellion the identity instead of building a coherent moral framework. This one is huge for me. A lot of Andrew Tate's appeal comes from rebellion against mainstream narratives. And to be fair, some mainstream narratives deserve criticism and having a deeper dive into them, which is quite risky on YouTube. But rebellion alone is certainly not a worldview, nor it should be. It is a reaction to any wrongdoings of the system. And if your identity is built mainly on the opposition, you can become addicted to contradiction more than committed to the truth. Some people follow Tate because he is anti-system, anti-weakness, anti-liberal culture, anti-political correctness, or simply because he says what others are scared to say. But eventually, every serious person has to ask, okay, but what do you actually stand for beyond provocation? What is your moral framework when the camera is not on? What are your obligations? What is your definition of honor? What do you owe your family, your community, your future children, your own conscience? That is where charismatic anti-establishment figures often fail people. We don't know what Tate is like behind closed doors, but I can assure you, if you focus on all those things that I've just mentioned, you're not going to be good behind closed doors. And without a coherent moral framework, confidence becomes self-worship. A man can absolutely reject modern nonsense and still become a fool if he has no moral back to himself. He can escape weaknesses and become cruel. He can become disciplined and still be spiritually empty. He can become rich and still be dangerous to everyone around him and not useful. So yes, you should absolutely question narratives. Yes, think independently. Yes, reject the manipulation that we can see sort of hidden as social media programming. But do not build your identity on rebellion alone. Build it on truth, responsibility, and the kind of character that still makes sense when the trend cycle changes. And it will change, hopefully for the better, for the families, for men and women out there. Now, those were the 6 things that I believe he gets wrong. Let's talk about the part people usually avoid admitting, the things he got extremely right. Men need discipline, not endless excuses. One thing Andrew Tate absolutely tapped into is this. Many men are suffering from a lack of discipline and too much excuse culture. And that message landed because it is so true. I've seen this in my ex-partners. I see this in young men out there in my everyday life. A lot of men are medicating their anxiety and loneliness with horrible distractions. Corn, I can't say it, gaming, binge eating, social media loops, weed, doom scrolling, self-pity, and I'm just waiting for the right moment. Months pass, years pass, nothing changes. Then they wonder why they feel weak, unattractive, and without any direction in life. Tate's message, at its best, cuts through that with quite ruthless clarity that I believe is almost like a tough love that every young man needs in his life. Get up, train, work, build, stop whining, improve your life. That part is extremely useful, not because suffering is fake, but because passivity compounds suffering. Motion helps, discipline helps, structure helps, the gym helps, skill building helps, earning helps, routine helps. All of these things, they are only going to get you further in life, and they are going to make you feel far better. It's always worth forcing yourself to give them a try. And a lot of men do not need another person to explain their trauma for the millionth time. They need someone to tell them to stop negotiating with their own laziness, with their own character, with their little devil on their shoulder. That is a part of why Tate got traction. He gave men a language of action, which I believe we were missing on social media prior to Tate's arrival. Now the correction is this. Discipline must be sustainable and value-based, not just ego-based. Do not become disciplined only to impress strangers. Become disciplined because your life is your responsibility, because you want to make your family proud, because you want to make God proud. Discipline is not meant to be a punishment. It is meant to be the biggest form of self-love that you could ever have. So yeah, on this point, he was speaking to a real need. Next, masculinity is not inherently toxic, and men need a positive ideal. Another thing he got right, even if he often expressed it in a completely distorted way, is that men need a positive vision of masculinity. If a culture only talks about men as potential threats, boys will either shrink or rebel. Neither outcome is healthy. Radical anything is not healthy. Masculinity is not the problem. Undisciplined masculinity is a problem. Immature masculinity is a problem. Violent, irresponsible kind of behavior is a big problem. But masculinity itself, strength, courage, protectiveness, initiative, endurance, responsibility, leadership under pressure, these are social goods when formed properly. Many boys and men are starving for language that honors those traits without apologizing for them. Tate gave them a version of that, and even people who dislike him should understand that this demand will not disappear just because they mocked supply. The demand has been there long before the supply arrived. Where he goes wrong with that is that he often confuses masculinity with dominance theater, as I explained it before. But the need he identified is very real. Men need initiation, men need challenge, men need models, men need standards, men need to be told they are capable of more than comfort and consumption. Good times make weak men make hard times. Somewhat, that's how it goes, I think. And to be completely honest, women need this too, by the way. Society benefits when men are grounded, competent, honest, and self-controlled. That is not patriarchy propaganda. That is social stability. So if you are a young man that is watching this, take the core truth and reject the distortion. Be strong, but don't be cruel. Be confident, but don't be arrogant. Be disciplined, but don't be numb. Be protective, but don't become controlling. Be ambitious, but do not become hollow. The third thing, we are already at the third thing. The third thing that Tate got right is that many systems profit when people are distracted, addicted, and weak. And yes, that includes men. Modern culture often does not just tolerate male confusion. It really makes money from it. Your attention is being framed. Your impulses are being targeted. Your loneliness is being exploited. Your sexual energy is being redirected into endless free consumption that is at the tip of your fingers on your laptop or on your phone. Your insecurity is being sold products. Your boredom is being sold entertainment. Your lack of direction is being kept comfortable so you stay passive. On this point, Tate's anti-comfort rhetoric hit something extremely real. Many men have been sedated by convenience. Men have been sedated by convenience. Do remember that sentence. There is a reason so many young men feel simultaneously overstimulated and underdeveloped. They are consuming constantly, but building and practicing very rarely. There is no real balance between those two, because consuming is not bad, it's just you've got to have a balance. Where Tate can become unhelpful is when this critique turns into paranoia or grand performance again. But the core message remains extremely useful. Be careful what and who owns your minds. If you do not govern yourself, something else will. An app will, a habit will, an algorithm will, a vice will, a crowd will. Whichever one you choose and which one is good and which one is bad, that's entirely up to you to decide. And that is a very serious point, and honestly, more people should be saying it, in my opinion. So now, after all of this, you're a young man and you're still asking yourself, what young men should actually take from this and what to leave behind. So, where does this leave us? If you are a young man who has watched Andrew Tate, agreed with some of it, and felt uncomfortable with other parts, you are not crazy. That tension is your brain working. Keep it. Keep your brain working. Do not let the internet train you out of your own moral instincts. Here is what I believe should be taken from this. Take the call to discipline, take the rejection of passivity, take the commitment to physical fitness, take the emphasis on competence and self-respect, take the refusal to build your identity around victimhood, take the idea that masculinity can be honorable and powerful. Here is what to leave, in my opinion. Leave the contempt, leave the objectification, leave the obsession with dominance, leave the idea that emotional suppression is strength, leave the reduction of people to status symbols, leave the performance of invincibility, and leave the belief that money is your soul. Money is very important, but it's what you have here is what matters. Because if you take the worst parts, you might become more impressive online and less trustworthy in real life. Let that sink in. And real life is where your character gets tested. Not in clips, not in comments, in your habits, day-to-day stuff, in your relationships, in your promises, in your temper, in your integrity, in your private everyday choices. For women watching this, I will say this too. If you want men to reject unhealthy masculine influencers, then society has to offer a better model than shame and mockery. Men do not move toward respect by being told they are the problem for existing. And this is what most women are doing online. They move toward stronger models when those models combine truth, challenge, and dignity. If we want better men, we need better standards and better language, not just better insults for men. Here is where women are extremely wrong about that, and is very problematic. And I have this favorite saying that women sometimes, they just don't know when to shut the fuck up, honestly. Let me end this with a thought that I believe matters beyond Andrew Tate. Every generation gets figures like this. Figures who say uncomfortable truths, then overreach. Figures who expose hypocrisy, then create a new one in the place of the old one. Figures who motivate people, then mislead them in other areas. If you do not learn how to separate the truth from ego, you will either worship the messenger or reject the message entirely. Both are huge mistakes. The mature response is far harder. It is to say, yes, that was true. No, that was destructive. Yes, men need that. No, not in that form. Yes, society failed to address screaming. Yes, society failed to address something. No, that does not justify becoming cynical, cruel, or corrupt. And honestly, that is the challenge for all of us now in the age of social media. We are surrounded by personalities online. Personalities sell certainty, but life requires something more than that. Life requires character. Personalities sell aesthetics. It doesn't exist. It is not real life. Life requires substance. So when you watch anyone online, including me, ask better questions. If you're coming at me with insults, you're just proving all the points that I've just said in this video. Does this person make me more disciplined or just more angry? And undoubtedly, when you are left-wing radical feminist, I probably make you extremely angry. Does this person make me more thoughtful or just tribal? Does this person make me more grounded or more performative, more honest or more reactive, more capable of building a real life, or just more addicted to consuming content about how to build one that doesn't actually physically exist anywhere? That is the test. If Andrew Tate made some men get up and improve themselves, good. What is the problem with that? Bravo. Do it again, Andrew. Do it again. Do it again. Do it again. I like that. If he also pushed some men toward contempt and distortion, that should be named too. And I'm certain he did. We can do both. Two things can be true at the same time. In fact, we have to do both. Because truth without courage gets silenced. And courage without truth becomes very dangerous. If this video hit a nerve, great. I want to know which part you disagree with the most. I don't want comments along the lines of, oh, you're just Andrew Tate fan. Am I? Do you think I like him or dislike him based on this video? My goal is for you to not be quite sure where I'm at with that, because I am right in the middle with him. Put it in the comments. I would love to hear from any of you that watched this.